All right, welcome to the first episode of Discussions. I am joined by the best UK journalist. It is Duck, CS:GO predominantly. Right, that being said, this is you don't really do that much video content, do you? So this is going to be like a
No.
kind of a new and intriguing
Yes.
step in the whole concept, right? But anyway, the topic of discussion which we are going to do, and just as a little prelim for basically the whole point of this discussions topic is there's so much relative news that happens in esports. So me and Duck essentially once a week we're going to pick out one topic that kind of takes our interest a little bit, just talk through it, say what our thoughts are. They are only our opinions, they're not facts before anyone decides to jump on a fucking bandwagon from the whole episode. Either way, the first topic that we are going for is McLaren Formula One has decided to launch their esports challenge and get involved in esports essentially. And I guess over the last couple of years, there's been a lot of forays from sports like clubs and whatnot moving into esports as a whole. Obviously, we've seen it through whether it be football, whether it be the NBA, whether it be baseball. Like a lot of it's starting to kind of come forward. But F1's kind of been a bit slow on it. There's not been that much in terms of the esports scene in terms of racing games in comparison to what you get with FPSs and even like FIFA and whatnot as well. So basically, what the whole process of what McLaren are intending to do is they've announced an esports racing competition in which the winner will be offered a position as one of their team's official Formula One simulator drivers. So the winner gets a 1-year contract in which they will work with engineers at both the team's UK factory and at Grand Prix circuits. So, Duck, my good sir, what is your initial thoughts on the news of McLaren entering the esports world?
So it is a bit of a strange one because usually when sports organisations roll into esports, they throw money at a team or some players and pick them up, having them play their esports titles under their brand forever. This is a bit different. It's like an esports tournament where you play a racing game or many racing games, as we still don't really know. Yeah, as we'll get to. And then you become part of the engineering team, assumedly testing the car virtually, which is a strange concept.
I mean, I'm very on the fence of this as it currently stands. Like you said, I think the way that you generally see like these sort of sporting brands move into esports, this is a different way of doing it for sure. And I think the way, because obviously, have you seen those like ridiculously expensive like driving simulators that you can get, those sort of things that,
Yeah.
that are used by F1 brands, and they're fucking amazing, dude. They're like literally insane as to how in depth they can go. So I assume obviously that is the kind of concept of it, but it still kind of seems weird to me in the fact of the way they've gone around doing it. So we'll kind of get into the details of it. Now, what they have stated is the contest is not limited to one platform or one game, as they are keen to not restrict access or entry to the tournaments. Now, I'm very much assuming that this is going to kind of be like a Gfinity type media way of doing things, in terms of like it's a lot more information to come down the line sort of thing, and they've just kind of spoon fed you a little bit on the initial. So it's very weird. Now the way I will look at this is that if you're not restricting it to any certain games, and the fact that they have said that it's essentially playable across multiple platforms. So the cheeky reference that good old Duck made in the beginning is you could literally get some bastard that smashes Mario Kart, and lo and behold, next year he's got a year contract with McLaren.
I've got a feeling that the whole entire concept is you're going to play some of these racing games, and then you're going to get to the simulator bit, and the people who play Asphalt 4 on their mobile phones or Mario Kart on the Nintendo DS or the whatever the fuck it is, Switch now, they're going to get absolutely destroyed by people who play stuff like Forza, Project Cars, or Trackmania when it gets to the simulation stage. It's just like, what's going on here?
I mean, Asphalt 4 is a sick game, dude. Don't hate, but like...
Yes.
But, I mean, if we just kind of take a step back and I guess look at the racing games that are to an extent involved in esports as it currently stands at the moment. Now, Trackmania has probably been the one that's been floating around for a long period of time, like going back to like the original Trackmanias and Trackmania Nations, I think it was as well. But even that's kind of died out. It's not. It's still going, but it's not at the same kind of levels that it used to be.
It was dropped last year from the SWC, which used to be their main tournament. Now Ubisoft's brought it in-house and doing their own tournaments to try and keep some bit of the esports scene alive. But Ubisoft are doing what Ubisoft usually do and just not give a shit, which is why their other games like Shoot Mania and all that also died.
Yeah, that is literally it. Ubisoft doesn't have the best of esports histories. Let's be honest. But yeah, so even with that, like, I guess you've got games like Forza, and like, don't get me wrong, I've got Forza. I've played near enough every single one, and it is a fantastic game. But at the same point, again, with every single like racing game that we're going to kind of pick through here, there isn't the biggest esports scene for it. Now, Project Cars, I'd probably say is the one at the moment which might be the exception to that. I mean, I know that I think their World Championships was done through ESL as well, so
yeah,
that's like the biggest kind of event or of scalings that I've kind of seen for racing game esports. So as it stands then, if there's not much to kind of pick from the amount of racing games that there are, and you're not limiting it to it, so I mean, I'm even more confused. How do you decide a winner? Or like they've also stated that they're gonna. So the way it's gonna work is there's essentially 6 people that will be invited, and then 4 people that will be done through qualifiers. So I'll get to the qualifiers in a sec, because I'm baffled to how the hell that one's gonna work. But if you're doing it on the invitation basis, I still don't understand how you're going to be able to decide that in a fair manner when it's across various games.
They're probably going to look at some of the top racing sports and go, "Oh, here's a good players, invite them." Yes.
It's literally going to be that though. But like, take FIFA as the best example, right? So FIFA's one of those that, in terms of, you do, so like, I think one of the recent like FIFA like or football team ones, which was the North American
Championship.
Yeah, so I was watching it the North American ones a while back, and even in that, like, obviously there's the cross-platform aspect of it as well, with like the PS, like those who play on PS4.
They have like one match on the PS4, one match on the Xbox.
Yeah, it's weird, but at the same point, like, fair enough. I guess that's the kind of easiest way to balance it out and make it slightly fair in that like that way of doing it, right? But for racing games especially, then a lot of them, like certain ones, aren't even available on cross-platform, multiple platforms. Anyway, they're limited to one specific console, which makes it a bit, e.g. the Forza, the kind of Gran Turismo's previously being exactly. Yeah. Now, they have also said that the whole process of it is going to be available on YouTube for viewing purposes. Though, I mean, they put social media channels as well, but I assume that's just in terms of just updates and whatnot. It's not going to be no dedicated. I mean, it might still be specific content footages, I guess, in relating to what's going to be put on social media. So, I mean, I think that's a slightly interesting one, that they've kind of decided to go with YouTube more so than Twitch or anything like that. But I don't know if they're going to be doing it from a streaming point of view, or if it's just going to be strictly like upload VODs. So, yeah,
probably.
Which I imagine it probably will go that way. But let's kind of stick on the main focus point of it, I guess, in terms of like, is McLaren moving into esports a surprise at this point?
Any sort of sport brand moving into esports is not a surprise at this point. Not at all, because it's such a large growing industry thing that it sort of makes sense from a marketing perspective to get involved and throw money at it, for example. But the way they've done it is sort of surprise, because there are esports arenas for racing games and stuff.
That is true.
And so you could imagine. I could easily imagine going, "Oh, we're going to pick up this Trackmania team, for example," which.
But I mean, that's kind of the way that you'd probably more expect them to like make their introduction into the esports world, though, isn't it? I mean, that's the same way that like other clubs have kind of in other like sports have gone around doing it. So you'd kind of expect maybe them to stick on the same like way of doing things. Yeah. Now, one of the
football teams do it all the time with FIFA, and then recently the NBA's announced their NBA 2K league, where they just
that's actually a good point.
Pick up NBA 2K players.
To be fair, that's actually quite a big scale thing, the amount, like how far it's actually picking up, to be fair. But I mean, we can cross that one on another day, to be fair, the NBA 2K stuff. But yeah, the kind of interesting point that I have got on the F1 side of things is that I was like doing some natural research on it anyway, and then like I came across a statistics quotes, and it was from like Steve O'Neill, so he's CEO of the 76ers, and it was like, so at the moment, like the esports fan base is 75% male, 18 to 34, highly engaged, but like not listening or watching traditional like radio or TV. Now, the reason why that statistic is very, very important is because of Formula One as a whole in terms of viewership has kind of dropped off in comparison to what it used to be. And personally, like, I used to enjoy watching Formula One a lot if we're going to go back like maybe 10 years or so. But ever since then, in terms of as more restrictions and regulations have kind of come into the sport, I don't find it as entertaining to watch from a viewership point of view. Even when it comes to say like the engines of the cars and things like that, obviously the way they sound now, they don't sound nowhere. They don't have that like oomph as much as what they did used to have, sort of thing. And that sort of thing just kind of gets you excited when you hear the revving of the car, right? But yeah, so viewership as a whole is kind of down for it, and a lot of people are kind of putting this down onto in terms of like the younger generation. It doesn't appeal to them in the same way that it necessarily used to. So I do think that maybe entering that kind of the esports world where that is that demographic of where they're probably losing the most amount of viewers is a good way to go to maybe try and reintroduce Formula One to them and get them involved in the brand side of it, so they can kind of get more views from that side of it. So I mean, I just personally, I mean, I've read a few other articles on it as well that were kind of all stating the same thing in terms of have Formula One decided to move into it too late, essentially. And I don't think it would be too late because look, there's still fucking plenty of time, and esports is still very young in the grand scheme of things, right?
Yeah. It's the argument that they've gone into too late would be trying to claim back this 18-24 area, but that would also imply that they're slowly running out of money, and the banks coming to going, pay back these loans, or there's nothing in your account. What are you doing? Formula One's not like that. They've still got millions sloshing around everywhere. It's not going to die anytime soon. But like to be fair, just adding on to part of why you stopped watching Formula One, I stopped watching Formula One because it stopped being competitive, really.
Yeah,
because it just was or it's the
same winners, like same cars, but like essentially. Yeah, I mean, I think the balance of it was it did get to a point where, I mean, obviously McLaren. I mean, I don't know. I mean, there's been a few different brands that have kind of always been on top, but kind of if you're making the same comparison to kind of what the Premier League used to be in football wise, that you always used to have that kind of top 3, top 4, and the Formula One was the same way. But football now in the Premier League and even in other divisions are starting to open up a lot more in terms of there's not that specific like top 4 that you get in the UK anymore, is it? It's like there's a lot more teams that are involved in that whole thing now. So I think Formula One's kind of still stuck to that, where you're only getting the same people or the same brands of cars kind of winning it on a regular basis. Now,
yeah, I came back this season. Force India is no longer orange; they're pink. McLaren's changed their colour as well, which confused me when I was looking at it. Okay, it's like, what's going on?
I mean,
they're destroying their brands.
To me, like, as much as I've always been a big fan of the Formula One cars, but at the same point, like, I've always been attracted to the personalities within it. So, yeah, I mean, even if you're going for the good old UK legend in Damon Hill, right, that was kind of, but for my age growing up watching Formula One, he was one of the key figures going into it, sort of thing, right, especially from a support your country point of view. And even if you're going back to like the Senna days sort of thing in terms of like just the quality of the racing and the enjoyment from the viewer's perspective, I always thought it was a lot better than what it kind of is now. But we're probably digressing a little bit onto to more of the F1 side. But yeah, right. So if we're going to go kind of, let's go back to the original talking point. So how would you then necessarily think the best way of doing it would be in terms of, because the whole concept of it to me, I think it would work if they restricted it, if they had specific games in mind and a specific platforms. But
these are the game. This is the game we're playing on, or these are the 3 games we're playing on to like try and open up to more than just PC or more than just Xbox and PS3 or PS4 or whatever. That would make more sense. The fact they've gone, we'll figure it out on any sort of game. No, that makes no sense, especially for what the prize is, which is you're going to become our simulation driver. Like, what?
I just don't see no fair way of doing it. Like, I think you just touched on it then. If you were to choose 2-3 games, right, say that you're going to go for Trackmania, Forza, and Project Cars, right? You're going to choose those 3 games, and then it's going to come to, say, like, you're going to do, say, like, they invite 2 people from each game. Then there's kind of, well, if they're inviting 4 more people, aren't they? So fuck it, let's chuck 1 more game into the branch and then say 4 games. So say like I had a Gran Turismo or whatever the fuck as well. But if you were to do it that way, then obviously you could do it like the kind of FIFA concept was, where you play each person on every game sort of thing, and then the winners kind of decided through that, right? That's kind of the only balanced way that I could actually see it working, because of even once people have done all these qualifiers and you've got these invited people in it, if it goes across and say that all the 10 people that are participating all participate in a different game or main in a different game, how the fuck are you going to work that? From 10 games, you have to select one person. It's 10 games across different platforms. The one thing, I mean, again, I don't want to jump the bandwagon on this because of the kind of the announcement that they did release was very short, and it is one of those that you expect a lot more information to come out of it in the future. So kind of fair enough. But at the same point,
the only real information comes from like a 1 minute 20 video.
Yeah.
And you get articles written by Sky Sports, which then throws a cheeky quote from the guy who is a director. It doesn't tell you as much as what's going on, though. It's like, tell me more, please. I want to speak properly.
The problem I have with it, I guess, is that, like, if you're going to then make the move into a new industry, essentially, then you want to do it properly. So, and we've seen it time and time again of these sort of investments not necessarily work out, and I just don't understand the kind of the logic behind doing such a partial announcement like this, because at the end of the day, all it does is from the outset is beg so many questions as to how the hell it's going to work. So you're straight away announcing it on a negative note from everyone else's perspective. Now, sure, there's going to be like, don't get me wrong, when I originally read the title, I was like, shit, this is great, this is going to be excellent. But as soon as you read the finer details of it, it's kind of like, well, if the way that you're proposing to do it from people that are already involved, from people that are already involved in the scene, they're going to look at it and be like, yeah, well, this is going to be a waste of time. Congratulations. It's just there's no clear-cut way of how it works. Now, I mean, we can obviously, I do hope that there is more information that comes out in the future, and if it is, then we would do a revisit the topic when it comes around. Just to kind of go on that more concept of it. But yeah, it's definitely weird. Now, the one thing I don't understand as well is because of what the prize is. And the prize is getting that year contract to become a simulating driver for Formula One, working with their engineers and everything. Now, this is the part where I don't understand the concept of opening it up for platforms in terms of if some dude does win, like, say, like the Asphalt 4, whatever the hell it was, like on iOS, I don't really think that guy is going to be the best person for the job, if I'm completely honest, right? Like, in comparison to if some, like, the lifelikeness or the comparisons between someone playing on Forza or a Gran Turismo and then going into the simulator is probably going to be a lot more chances of that person doing well in comparison to the person playing it on a phone, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's so
because you have an actual control in your hand rather than, and you've also got controls over speed and whatever, and as well as brakes and turning. Whereas controls on phones, literally, you're gonna have possible speed and brake, but nothing else, nothing more precise.
Yeah. Whereas in, say, like Forza, in terms of like the clutch control and everything like that, it's a lot more finer detailed. So when you then come into a simulator, and there's going to be a lot of people that play these like iPhone type games that have never drove a car in their lives either, so they don't really know that. So you know what I mean? So they're just playing it with a couple, like holding it in their hand with a couple of fingers, and that's all they're doing. Whereas at least on the controller side of it, you do have a lot more detail, and it is a lot more of a lifelike experience. So you can apply that to kind of becoming that simulator in the end of it. So I would love to think that the information that they're going to release in the future is going to then kind of quash any of the kind of doubts that we've had about it. But there's just that always lingering part that because of we've seen it so many times before of these investors come in or new brands come in and they just make horrible decisions. It just doesn't fill you with confidence, does it?
No.
So, I mean, what would you say for, like, from this point onwards then? Because, I mean, as it stands, I guess this video will be reasonably short because the amount of information they did put out for it was quite limited at the moment. No. But where can you then see McLaren or other F1 brands going in the future?
Like, the only way I really see it work is if there's some sort of esports title that the F1 teams can get behind. It'll probably be forced to go into the actual F1 game title by F1 as a brand because money and whatever. Which means they'll then try and form some sort of official esports title. But I genuinely can't see that working because people who watch F1 want to watch F1. They really watch people play the game of F1. I know that's a really shit argument, and no one really likes that one. But considering how far removed you are, and considering you are just the one player on the controller, I don't see how it's going to translate well into an F1 game. And that is also sort of seen by the fact that racing games aren't really that large of an esports title. But the only way I can really see it going is if the ownership of the F1 teams buy into esports organisations, get involved in venture capital funds like the Bitcraft one Jens Hilgers has or whatever, or the Axiomatic things that run Team Liquid at the moment. That's the only real way I can see an F1 getting involved in esports. But it's not gonna be like we're gonna pick up a team you're gonna play in this title. That would just be a poor use of cash.
Yeah, no,
create a buzz for a bit, nothing else.
I'd say I'd
probably
fully
what
agree.
McLaren want, because they need more buzz considering they're bottom of everything.
And to be fair, it might be like that, you know what I mean? Try and like entice new crowds to then go and support them in that concept, right? But I think I agree with you for the most part in terms of the way that those sort of brands are going to move into it. Probably will be along the lines of more the venture capitalist type investments into organizations that we have seen quite a lot of late. But at the same point, I was reading something as well, and I'm pretty sure it did say like the Formula One championships or along that kind of tagline was actually trademarked as a kind of as a future
okay, yeah, sure.
So like kind of like the same as like the Bundesliga thing where they've obviously trademarked various like esports.
The e-Bundesliga,
yeah, exactly. But so I mean I did see that. So I mean the concept of that would still be quite an interesting one to see if they did move into it, and I guess it would work in a similar way as to what the NBA 2K kind of concept is working, right? Because I mean the vast majority of teams or brands that are within that franchise are actually participating in the 2K league itself. So I would imagine that if you were to do it on a Formula One style, it would probably work the same way. Now, I think in theory, I mean, the amount of kind of euphoria that's been created over the 2K one, I think similar amounts would be created for F1. But I do kind of think, and this is a personal judgment, but from a lot of the people that I know that are like really dedicated to watching Formula One are not the most open to games and things like that. They're a lot. It's a lot more of an individualized sport, I guess, in terms of like most of the time if you come across people that love football and die hard football, but they still love other sports to an extent, like in a like high amount as well. Whilst a lot of the people that I know that love Formula One are quite restricted to loving Formula One. Now, I'm not saying that's an overall judgment. I'm just purely basing it upon people that I know that are into it. But yeah, I'm not too sure how necessarily open the kind of fan base behind that are already in Formula One would then be to them entering the esports world. Whilst you look at games like NBA and you look at games like FIFA, and now they're obviously two games that, because of the games are so big for them, like, you know what I mean, the amount of people that play FIFA and the amount of people that play NBA 2K was. So that racing games, in terms of like pure numbers that play them, is nowhere near on the same level as what you get from like unique players for FIFA and things like that. So that would then beg the kind of question that would people generally be open to it that are involved in that, or are they just going to strictly do it to try and focus and target that new audience and bring them in? Like, to me, that's probably what I see being the case more so than anything else.
Yeah. It's like the majority of people who watch F1 don't really translate into watching other racing sports, so they don't go and watch MotoGP, they don't watch F2, they don't watch Formula E even. It's like they're focused on their one racing sport, and then the rest of it isn't, as you can see by the fact it's not as large and not as many sponsors. Most people focus on F1 because it's like the pinnacle of racing or whatever. So I don't really see how it would be able to translate into an esports area where people would watch F1 as an esport as well as its sport. It would be fairly. I think that would be a fairly difficult sell.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in the exact same boat. I think by them trying to target that new target market of the younger generation, I think there is a multiple reasons as to why they're doing it. Because they've probably looked at esports as a whole and realised the scale of what it necessarily is, and then being, in fairness, like maybe seeing the moves by like 2K for NBA is probably kind of maybe giving them a kick up the arse as well, to kind of think, well, look, if they're doing it, every other sport's doing it as well, then maybe we could capitalise on it from a business perspective. Now, The one kind of last intriguing.
Well, this is
Yeah,
only
go on.
one team rather than an entire league.
Yeah, I
Comparing
mean,
it to the 2K league.
but
It is
again,
just the one league, yeah.
I guess you'd highly expect a roll-on effect, right? Like it has been from other like sports as well, in terms of once
Yeah,
the
true.
initial brand moves into it, because it's kind of like, I think, I guess it still applies to a lot of like football clubs and like NBA clubs across the world, in terms of
Yeah, true.
everyone knows that they've got their eyes kind of eagerly watching it, in terms of looking out and looking for potential investments. And it's kind of like, once that initial person or team takes that plunge, then obviously other people are more enticed to kind of do the same investments. But no one really likes being that first person to enter the market in a new thing, especially when there are still a lot of like stereotypes around it, sort of thing. Then you've got to still kind of weigh out from a PR perspective as well. So yeah, I mean, being honest, I don't know what other ways they would potentially move into it, into esports as a whole. I would really like to see more like opportunities kind of come up available. And like, I mean, I'm still not 100% sure on the prize side of it. I mean, I don't know if people that are playing these racing games are necessarily going to want that sort of role, right? They could be saying, they'd be like, you know
True.
what, I'd much rather you put up 100k prize pool and I can continue with my fucking day job, you know what? So that's why I'm slightly intrigued to see the way it'll work. But the one,
I mean, theoretically, after the year contract, you might theoretically be offered a more permanent role.
yeah,
But theoretically,
you
who knows?
could quit your relatively good job that you have at the moment to go take this. It goes horribly wrong, and there you go. You're fucked, sunshine, right?
Yeah.
But the online qualifiers is kind of the last one. I love speaking about online qualifiers. They're fantastic. They're not. They're fucking awful. But how do you operate an online qualifier for if you in this scenario? If you're going to have 4 people that are going to win through a qualifier, if you can't, like, the only way again I can see this working is if each qualifier, so you have 4 qualifiers and each one is for a different game, but then straight away they're going to essentially backlog by doing that on what they've said in terms of keeping it open for all platforms or not restricting it to any one game. So
Yeah.
I do I'm, by all means, I could end up eating my own words on this, like, fully, and they're going to announce something, and it'll be like, yeah, that's actually the best way of doing it. Fair enough, but
Yeah, they are probably going to announce like in a couple of days' time, the 4 games that are actually going to
Yeah.
take part in it, and go like, oh, we completely fucked that up, haven't we?
But that's but like it does kind of just look like that to me, in terms of a lot of what they've said by saying that, and that's probably the most key part of the information from what they've released, is saying that it's not limited to one platform or one game. So if you're going to do, like, I can only see them backtracking on what they've already stated. Now, if that is the case and they do go and do that, it just straight away starts off on a PR disaster to me. Like, you don't want to enter the whole, like, a new industry bullshitting from the outset. Like, it's just not a good way to start. So I mean, I guess what it is going to be is we'll eagerly await and see if any more information does come on it. Was there any other like talking points that you think might be worthwhile on the current topic?
It's probably just
Nah,
a grab.
mate.
It's probably just an advertising grab for McLaren to like try and get their name up. Because
Yeah,
they might be very well in F1 for the past good solid 3 years at least. So
yeah. I think I can't remember specifically what it was, but I think when it was like when they had like all of them had to have a certain engine change, and then McLaren just kind of fucked themselves from that point onwards. I think.
Yeah.
Don't hold me on that fully, but I'm pretty sure that was the case. But yeah, either way, so this will kind of just be the initial episode that we do on it. If we like from now on, I guess, if we do, or any topics that we do end up discussing, generally they're only going to be about 20 minutes to 45 minutes long. We want to keep it short and sweet. But yeah, we will do follow-up episodes when relevant. If there are any other topics or whatever that you do feel like it would be interesting to listen to me and Duck chat shit about, then by all means inform
Tweet us.
Yeah, tweet us, let us know, send us aggressive emails, whatever you feel like.
Yep.
But yeah, other than that, obviously mine and Duck's Twitters are available on the video, so by all means give us a follow and send us a message if you do have any suggestions. And other than that, remember to like, comment and subscribe, and we will see you soon. Peace.